Welcome to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein, talking about the evolutionary, the revolutionary, the inspiration and the perspiration, and those aha moments that change everything. And now, here's your host, Rich Goldstein.
Rich Goldstein here, host of the Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast, where I feature top leaders and the path they took to create change. Past guests include Joe Polish, Roland Frazier, and Joe DeSena. This episode is brought to you by my company, Goldstein Patent Law, where we help you to protect your ideas and products. We've advised and obtained patents for thousands of companies over the past 27 years. So if you're a company that has software, a product, or a design you want protected, go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, where there are amazing free resources for learning about the patent process. You could also email my team at welcome@goldsteinpc.com to explore if it's a match to work together. You could also check out the book I wrote for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's called the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. I have with me here today Chris Shipferling. Most of Chris's career was spent as a sales and marketing executive in consumer products. And for the past 7 years, Chris has focused on high-level consulting for multi-channel, multi-million-dollar omni-channel brands, digital native and Amazon-based private label and reseller brands. And today, Chris is the head of business development for Global Wired Advisors. In this capacity, Chris finds client companies that are poised for sale. He guides them through the initial steps, and then he prepares them to make the best possible first impression. So I'm very pleased to welcome here today, Chris Shipferling. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, Rich. Good to be on, man.
Absolutely. Great to have you here.
Yeah.
And let's just talk a little bit about your background first of kind of what led you to what you're doing now. So you worked in the trenches on consumer products. So tell me a little bit about that experience.
I did. It was fun. Yeah. Coming right out of college, I started with a company called Combi. It was a Japanese-based business, Tokyo-based business, publicly traded on the Nikkei. So that was fun. Lots of auditing every year that we went through. But started as really just a salesman, just a sales rep for the company. Got in my car and drove around selling specialty stores within the Southeast. On the product line, we sold strollers and car seats and play yards and high chairs and feeding accessories, et cetera. And it was great. You know, even early on, I learned that sales really boils down to two things. If you've got a work ethic, but it's also the ability to build relationships. And within that ability to build relationships, you don't burn bridges, right? You always stay nice and even keel. And so also helping your customer find value in what you're bringing to the table and your client. So if, for instance, I built really good relationships with all of these different stores, but then, I mean, there were times where I would grab a broom and just start sweeping the storeroom for them, just go out to the warehouse and help them ship boxes if I needed to, really understanding kind of where is my client right now? Where does he need the most help? Maybe it's strategic, maybe it's tactical, and really learning how to work with them. That was on a very small scale. From there, I in 7 years, in 2010, I left Combi as a really running their sales and marketing. I left for a myriad of reasons. We built the business up to roughly $22 million as part of a larger management team. And I went off and got recruited by a middle market consumer products company called Evenflow. They were about close to $500 million, and they were owned by Weston Presidio at the time. And I was part of a team that came in to help with real true turnaround. You know, the company was distressed, and it needed a lot of just injection of both, not just capital, but actually human capital, like really, really, really good industry level type of people. So I was part of that team, worked with some brilliant folks, brilliant minds, lots of P&G guys that I worked around, just because it was in Dayton, Ohio, and Cincinnati. It was easy to recruit from. The CEOs I worked under, and I say it plural, I was only there for 3 years. There were 3 different ones. Right. But the CEOs that I worked under were just brilliant men. And they really were able to teach me a lot, both through osmosis and directly, on how to really see big picture on an enterprise level business and all of the details and complexities that go into that. From there, I started working for a company. I left in 2013, started working for a business out of Barcelona as a family-owned business. While I was there, that's when I had the epiphany that I needed to just stop trusting the subjective opinion of a buyer. Spent a lot of time up in your area, man. Going to see Bye Bye Baby and Toys R Us, Babies R Us over in New Jersey. But I realized that the epiphany was I have to stop trusting the opinion of the buyer, and I need to go have that direct consumer handshake with mom and dad at the time, right?
Right, and the buyer that we're talking about here in particular is the retail buyer.
That's right. It's a retail buyer.
The buyer, as opposed to, as in contrast to the consumer, the person who's actually buying the product.
That's right.
The buyer you're talking about is the one who's assuming that they understand what the consumer wants, and they're representing a retail chain and helping them to decide what products to buy. Right. Yeah. That buyer is just clarifying for the audience which one we
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And they are loaded with good data, and they're seeing all the different data that we were reading going into into any type of line reviews or any type of buyer meetings that we would have. But I realized that where the economy was going in terms of consumer behavior, it was all shifting online. And this was even back, obviously it was coming on fast and furious through the early 2000s, leading up to kind of a true paradigm shift. I'd say around 15 or 16, you really started to see it ratchet up. So that's when I dove in. I had $500,000 of inventory sitting in a warehouse, and I had to get rid of it. And I wanted to go find out how to have that direct handshake with the consumer. So where were the buffalo drinking water, right? That's always the question. And one massive reservoir is this just small thing called Amazon.com. And so over the years, I worked with Vendor Central. I was very familiar with Amazon, but then I really buckled down to understand Seller Central very, very well. And then also understanding digital marketing. How do I go and take a widget, a product, make it shine and put it in front of millions of potential buyers and potential consumers? And then how do you take what you're doing and extrapolate good feedback from that particular market? It was all very intriguing. So put my head down, learned all of that, ended up leaving and starting my own consulting firm, where I helped enterprise clients and even small and medium-sized businesses. I really helped them start to think and formulate around a digital strategy. I still stayed in my industry. I worked with a lot of juvenile product companies and a lot of toy companies. But then that's where I started my consultancy. I met my partners pretty much about a year and a half, 2 years after starting my consultancy. I might be getting some of my dates wrong, but in early 2018, met my partners, had a cup of coffee with Jason in particular, my one partner. And it was very evident that there was something for us to do there. They had a small business. They call it investment banking for small to medium-sized businesses, or what financial markets call the lower middle market. And so they were really working with a lot of traditional businesses. They also had a private equity effort where they were buying companies. And in that process, they discovered that when they were going to look at e-commerce or online assets at the time, this was 2017, they were speaking with business brokers in the space to potentially purchase, a business. And they realized, coming from their backgrounds, they came from the institutional investment banks. So they worked all the bulge brackets: Deutsche, Citi, Wells, Bank of America, the Hartford, et cetera. They realized that there is a lot of opportunity in this space to deploy a true sophisticated process on going through a sell side engagement to a digitally focused company, what we would call digital consumer product, right? And so I met them. They had that experience. We came together and said, this is a really good idea. It's an underserved market, and there is no one deploying this investment banking style process, and really strong, it comes down to people and process. So you don't have really strong skill sets with people in this space. this was at the time, and you don't have a strong process driving and extrapolating as much really value out of the process as possible. So here we are. Global Wired Advisors was then born. And so myself and my three partners started Global back in early 2018, really got it off the ground by mid 2018. And we started to see almost immediate positive feedback from our business. It was a thesis. Like any good business, you have a thesis, right? And, you know, it wasn't an investment thesis. I mean, it was, because we actually put money into the company, but it was really a true thesis of, okay, we believe this market's underserved, and we believe if they were given the option to go through something more sophisticated with people that have really strong backgrounds, and not just the guy who sold his business, therefore he's now qualified to sell your business.
Right.
It's a real, like, we didn't just wake up and say we're an investment bank as a cute marketing ploy.
Right.
My partners were investment bankers since the day they got out of college. And so really being able to deploy decades of experience, we said, will it make a difference? And the thesis was proven to be it's a resounding yes. It's very true. So
absolutely. So really the thesis was around a business model and a niche. So it's like, can we go into this niche and provide value? We think there's an opportunity here for value. And then you had a notion of a business model where you could make a business out of bringing it to this niche, bringing that type of expertise there. Absolutely. And that's paid off. And just one thing I wanted to remark on is just the range of experience that you've had. It's really interesting. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people that are in this field have had experience with the, $2 to $10 million brands, or maybe even like the up to $50 million Amazon sales businesses. But you worked in companies like Evenflow, where it was like a half a billion dollar business. You worked in digital strategy, digital marketing, also in sales, like selling products on, essentially door to door. How products are sold, door to door, going, buyer to buyer, right? Yeah. So it's just quite a range of experience. And so, I mean, from that, I mean, what do you think that current sellers, current business owners of online businesses, what do they need to know about selling their business?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think number one, there's what I've noticed about the space, and I think everybody who's listening will say, yeah, that's exactly what it's like. But there's a lot of water cooler discussion. There's a lot of hearsay. And that typically happens when you lack a good reservoir of data and research, right? And I think this space, it lacks it, right? And so you're relying on a lot of, friends, circle of friends, masterminds, et cetera, to really tell you information that, frankly speaking, is all privatized. You have no idea what's true and isn't true. And, we've heard a lot of tall tales, a lot of what I call fish tales around the campfire that just simply aren't true. And so as a seller, where should you go and get the best advice? How should you be viewing what's currently going on in this market? Number one, you're getting hit with an email once a day from either, there's no more new aggregators. That's stopped. There's been a very, very much a dry spell, and we knew that was going to happen. We knew it was going to happen because we speculated that it was going to happen. You reach a point of mass concentration, and then just really there's no room for anybody else to squeeze in. And two, we were actually told that by a really good resource. So, you've got roughly 100 of these roll-up companies looking for Amazon-based assets. And you get a new email a day, you get a new drip campaign a day as a seller, and you're going, what's real and what isn't real? And I think what you need to do is take a step back and go, where can I find the most professional service? If you're looking for an exit, or if you're looking for IP help and consultation, take a step back and go, well, where can I find a real professional service to help guide me in terms of what's really happening? And I know that I'm biased, so I can speak for ourselves. When it comes to the exit process, one of the things that we really enjoy doing is just making sure that our potential client or our clients are fully educated on the market. So what is really happening? You got a lot of venture debt that's flowing into this space, and it's all looking for deals. It's all looking for deal flow. And sellers, you're the deal. You're the deal flow. And so you've got to just sit back and ask yourself, do I want to go direct to this roll-up company, or do I want to go through a process when it comes to my ultimate exit? And when you're thinking about it, the lens should be, this is my largest asset. Please take this seriously. Like, take this whole thing very, very seriously. The minute that you decide to go direct to an aggregator, the minute you hire a representative that is suboptimal and does not have the respect from the buying community or the acquirers, you signal to everybody you're not taking it seriously. So take a step back and go, how can I signal to the market that I'm very serious about selling my business, and I brought to the table the best representation that I could possibly bring? It plays into your world, Rich, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot. I don't know if there's a lot, but I mean, let's just say there's a lot for the sake of saying it. There's a lot of folks you might be able to choose, just like with intermediaries, to sell your business when it comes to IP and trademark. But the world isn't flat. There's real terrain. There are firms that are really good at what they do and will make sure that they're thinking and anticipating what could happen down the road.
Right.
And then there's firms that you compete with that are highly transactional and volume driven, and they're sloppy. They're suboptimal, and they're not detailed. They're not thorough. It's the same over in the intermediary space. So yeah, I mean, as a seller, you just have to sit back and go, what's happening in this space and where is it headed? You got to start asking some of those questions, because otherwise you get caught up in that. And also too, drink some humility juice and go, how does my business layer into what's happening right now?
Yeah. And it's interesting. Like, you mentioned how it could be a sign to the market when you pick one of the wrong types of people. And I think it ties in to more of what you're saying, in that it's kind of like a sign of weakness. It's kind of like, oh, you're working with them. You could say, like, well, you might not be very smart is one way to look at it.
That's right.
But it's also like, you might not be very strategic. Like you mentioned, the IP side of things. Like if, like those types of things are a sign of like, okay, if you haven't dotted the I's and crossed the T's here, then you're probably not dotting the I's and crossing the T's in other areas of your business. And if you're not strategically thinking through some of these things, such as like who you work with and what path you take towards getting your business sold, then you probably haven't thought through some other parts of how you operate and how you've structured your business. And that leads to a sign of weakness, in a sense, that like just the negotiating is like if someone views you as being strong, having it together, having dotted the I's and crossed the T's, they're more likely going to take what you say during negotiations seriously. They're going to take your position more seriously than if they see weaknesses in the way you've done other things. Like, how you do anything is how you do everything.
That's right. It's interesting. I mean, even for us, we're business owners, and we had to engage with a law firm, and we had to make a decision when we engaged with a law firm. It was over a specific issue, and we'll leave it there. And so we had to make the decision: do we call Saul, right? Do we find a marquee law firm to let everyone understand that we're very serious about this issue and we're going to get it resolved as fast as possible, because we care about it and we care enough to make sure that we signal to the other party that we're very serious about everything, right? And so it dovetails into exactly what you just said. Signaling that you're coming from a position of strength, not weakness. We just, I spoke to somebody just as of last week who told me they worked with a business broker in the space, someone that if I said the name, everybody would know. And they were walking me through what I would consider the deal from hell. They said that, and a lot of folks, a lot of sellers go, well, I can find the aggregator. So what's the value of you? And the reality is, and I'm only laughing because it's getting a deal closed. That's the reality. Like finding the buyer set. If you've got a real strategic business, yeah, sure. If you believe that you just think you should sell to an aggregator, by all means, go at it. But if you believe you've got something larger and bigger, staying power, brand, something of size, something of scale, there's more to life than the aggregators. And that's really what we're good at, is really bridging the gap and finding the private equity funds, the traditional funded sponsors, the corporate strategics, et cetera. But this guy in particular, he's walking me through the broker who, the broker process. And when they got to LOI, which by the way, even getting to LOI, the client, the seller, had to do all of the work, even getting there, and the negotiating.
Oh, do you want to just define LOI for some in the audience?
Yeah, it's a letter of intent. So it's basically a, hey, here's how we value your company and the different components of the valuation.
Kind of like a term sheet in a sense. It's like,
yes, that's right. It's a term sheet. And so they go down a path, and the broker's nowhere to be found in closing. And so this guy tells me that he had to do all of the work. He spent 75 days, an unbelievable amount of manpower. His business suffered. And then by the time they got to 3 days before closing, this particular aggregator completely retraded him 100%. That's terrible representation. That's massive amounts of weakness. And you know why he got retraded? Because they know it. These guys they're not 501c. They're not in charity. And they come from places like Bain and Moelis and Dearborn and Goldman. They're nice guys, sure, but in business they're cutthroat, because that's how they've been classically trained, not to think for you, but to think for their fund. That's it. Period. Game over. And so
it's transactional. It's not a relationship. It's transactional, and so it's like they'd flip it like any other commodity.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the more they can get you into that commoditized mode and away from you thinking and believing, because you put together incredible marketing materials and you've been able to position the company as something more strategic, the more they can believe you're commoditized, way better for them. Way, way better for them. Right. And so that's one example of going, yeah, you chose poor representation, and that was the output of choosing that type of representation.
Got it. Okay. And, I know you are not here to pitch, but I'm curious, like, what's the model? How do you guys work? Like, what's your,
Yeah. So, I mean, for us, it's genuinely, like I said earlier, it's about people and process. We're building out a true lower middle market investment bank where, the types of people that we hire inside of our bank as associates and analysts, vice presidents, managing directors, research heads, and even in some ways, business development. We're not hiring from folks who have never worked in investment banking. It's all investment bankers inside of our investment bank. It sounds like, wow, that's really Chris. Why are you describing it that way? I do it for a reason, because even in this space, there are folks who call themselves investment bankers, but they're not filling any type of roles with true classically trained investment bankers. And so there's a big difference. So it's really about people, and then it's about process. And so the people in our investment bank, you have a lot, as a seller, you can have a lot of confidence that we're looking through every single detail. We're very thorough. We're classically trained in all the financial, in large capital markets. The guys that we hire come out of Piper Sandler, Trinity Capital, Wells Securities, Citigroup, Wolf Research. I mean, some real BMO, big Wall Street names. So you've got a team that's like backing you, that not only understands financial and capital markets, but part of what we do is we make sure that they fully understand. Everybody who works in our investment bank knows Amazon, and they know digital consumer very, very well.
Yeah.
Day one, they may not know, but after 1 month of very rigorous training, these are very smart people too. They pick up on things very quickly. They know digital consumer. It's extremely important because we are focused on consumer products. So it's about process too. Our process is wildly different than anything else that you'll find in this space. We do deploy more of an investment banking, institutional level process, but we even do that differently than the middle market and institutional banks. Really trying to optimize and become more efficient than what's currently out there in the institutional world. But What does a process like this really look like, and what does it mean for a seller? It means that we're going to take our time to do full due diligence up front. We're going to make sure that we're anticipating any type of buyer questions, any type of problems, and we're going to solution them before you go to market. We're going to dive in and put together marketing materials that are, 40, 50, 60 pages in some cases, kind of depending on your size and scale. And it's more than just that. You've got to be able to then have very smart people, Rich, as you well know. You see a lot of docs and paperwork. Anybody can read it, but to articulate it, interpret it is a whole other. I mean, that's what makes a good lawyer, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the people who are extremely highly intelligent who can interpret information, data, docs, and
then see the big picture, read between the lines, and see like the context that the whole thing sits inside of.
That's exactly right. So it's the same with our process. It's more than just putting together a pretty book. The pretty book is nothing more than just a tool for us to help articulate the both past, or actually three, past, present, and then what is a buyer buying? They're not buying your historicals. They want you to believe that because that makes you commoditized. They're buying the future. And so you got to really pin that down, and you have to do a highly intelligent job. I'd say lots and lots and lots of good work to put together how you articulate the go forward opportunity for this particular business. So once we're in market, so we create a market. And what I mean by that is we don't have a buyer list that we just hit send on. Yeah, sure. We've been able to build a segmented buyer list based on, what traditional funded sponsors or private equity funds are interested in or what they aren't. We'll build out a list of corporate strategics, funded sponsors, family offices, and also roll-up companies, and we'll put them all into one that's customized for a particular deal. We have a fitness deal that just went to market, highly customized. We had a toy deal that just went to market, highly customized. It's not the same buyer list. That's really important because you're now reaching potential acquirers from a strategic standpoint, not from I just need to hit a send button. Let's see what happens. It's like throwing spaghetti on the wall and let's see what noodles stick, right? And so we're doing all the work when we're in market. You're running your business. And then once we start to get to real indications of interest, we run an auction style process where we really drive people towards a date to submit their indication of interest or IOIs. We look through which IOIs are best for the particular client. We do lots of advisement, and then we move to what's called management calls. From management calls, we pick the lead dog in the race or the lead horse, and then we move into closing. And we're doing everything. We are the quarterback, and we're doing everything really from start to finish. And where the client gets involved is in the beginning, where they're feeding us all the information, and at the end, because they have to be involved in closing, but we are running the process from start to finish. That's wildly different and in stark contrast to almost every other process that's currently running in this space.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to learning more about that. We're actually going to be at an event. So, this episode could be downloaded by people. It will be downloaded by many people as we move into next year and the year after that. So at the risk of dating this, just the next minute or so of discussion, though, is we're going to be at an event in Las Vegas called Prosper. If you're in Amazon and you don't know Prosper, you need to know about Prosper. Biggest Amazon selling event. Really all the players in the field are going to be there. So Chris, you and I are going to do an event. We're going to do a couple of events, actually.
Yeah.
We're sponsoring a breakfast with Kevin King. Kevin King does $1 Billion Seller Summit, which is going to be happening September. It's going to be, I think, the 4th edition coming up of it. But in any case, we're doing $1 billion breakfast and getting together a lot of that community. And Chris, you and I are sponsoring that. And then we're also going to be doing an event with Empowery, the e-commerce collective, and basically throwing on the Thursday evening of the conference. I guess that's July 15th. We're throwing an event up at MGM, which is going to be a welcome party for the women in e-com event that or conference that Empowery is putting on later that same week. So we're going to be sponsoring some events for the community, and we're going to get to hang out too.
I know, man. I'm super excited. It's going to be fun. It's actually Global Wired's first Prosper. We were going to go last year. We debated going in 2019, but we were in just massive growth and startup mode. So it was kind of all hands on deck at the time. Then we were going to go in 2020, March of last year. And then I don't know, this weird thing called the pandemic hit. So kind of pushed us off. Now, this is our first Prosper. We're really excited to attend, and really, really excited to join up with you, Rich, and sponsor. That breakfast is going to be fun. But the Empower and also the Empowery meetup, that's going to be a lot of fun. The soiree in the sky.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I had a booth in 2019, and when it was really great. And I was supposed to be back in 2020 with not only a booth, but also speaking at the event. But then that event was canceled. So there was a virtual event later in 2020 that I spoke at, but obviously I didn't have a booth there. So I'm going to have a booth at this event. So, I'll be there to meet people, just to hang out. And I'm sure, Chris, you'll be there hanging out a bit as well.
Yeah, we're going to be kind of going to Prosper during the day, probably, late in the morning, all the way until 4 or 5 o'clock. But yeah, we want to, for us, it's about meeting other exhibitors, formulating good strategic partnerships. And, obviously, if we run into sellers who would love to have conversations about going to market or selling their business, either short-term, long-term, we're clearly there to help that, facilitate that conversation. But for us, we're really excited just to meet. There are a lot of people like yourself that I've only met on Zoom. I'm really excited to meet people face to face. I'm excited to shake hands again if people are comfortable with that, but I'm excited to actually have some human interaction within this entire space where we've been living in this virtual Zoom world for the past year and a half. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it is a very relationship-driven field. The Amazon selling world is very much built on relationships. So it's I'm looking forward to, like I said, I have a booth. Really, my main purpose is to provide a place where I can get to sit and hang out with people I already know and meet some new people. Of course, that booth is under my name, Goldstein Patent Law. If anyone would like to come by and see me, and Chris, you're welcome to come hang out anytime that you want as well. And nice. Maybe folks will get to see you as well.
Yeah, great.
Over in kind of my hangout spot.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Cool. Great.
I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, if people want to learn more about you or get in touch with you, how do they go about doing so?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Go to Google for the 5% or maybe 3% still using Bing or Yahoo. Just type in Global Wired Advisors, and we will be the first to come up. You can click there, go right to our website, or just direct globalwiredadvisors.com. We've got a couple different ways. One, my email is on there, so you can just contact me directly. Secondly, we've got a consultation form if you'd like to have, a complimentary consultation where we learn about your business, we learn more about your goals and kind of your long-term goals around exit planning and exit strategy. We're just happy to really give strong advisement on that call to see, hey, where are you today? It's really the intersection, what we call it. Where are you today? What are your goals, and what will the market think about that? So that intersection may not be today. It may actually be 6 months from now. It might be a year from now, but we're happy to give that advisement. We do have a valuation tool. It's 90,000 feet. We input a lot of data into it, but it's really just a way for you to input. It's got a lot of data components to it. So it's not something totally simple, but it's not overly complex. So you input a bunch of data and it really spits out what we would consider more or less kind of the fully optimized view of your company in that very high level valuation range. But devil's in the details. Rich, that way too well. Devil's always in the details. So, we always encourage, if you want to, kind of use the valuation tool, we always say, hey, have a follow-up call with us and we can always kind of walk you through, how your business would layer into the market. So.
Absolutely. That sounds great. And Chris, I appreciate you coming here.
Yeah.
And providing lots of value, giving lots of insight to how you run a business and how you work towards selling towards selling your business in the space. So really appreciate that. Thanks so much. And
thank you.
I guess also I'll see you soon.
You'll see me soon. Yeah. Thanks for letting me be casual today. I'm hanging out at the beach this week, so yeah, I was very thankful that you said I could wear a hat.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you represent the lifestyle businesses,
right?
Represent the lifestyle entrepreneur that people aspire to, and a lot of what like of your processes are really aimed towards helping people kind of fulfill that dream and get to that point. Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, thanks for having me on.
So you've made it, and everyone else can too.
That's right. It's a good tagline.
So thanks again, Chris. I really appreciate you taking the time for your beach vacation. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at innovationsandbreakthroughs.com, and we'll see you next time.